So I figured I'd talk a little bit more on here about prophecies that I believe I have the evidence are being fulfilled as we speak, continuously. Many. But let's see, yeah, I was going to do something with that. I think I got space on this battery. Oh. Ella, and then to the left. Okay. I gotta go around and around and around. And where it stops, nobody knows. But I think this is what they want me to do. So, I've been talking about these Revelation 11, and of course I do all the time, but in particular regarding where their deceased bodies would be remaining returned to heaven. And so, where the carcass is, it says, the eagles will be. And the eagles represents both the next level and the space alien in that context, I think. The carcass is where the sea star, okay, I think, and that's because overcoming the human kingdom means conquering our humanness. The only way you can conquer your humanness is to practice it. And that can be, you know, whatever the things are in your life that are, I would say as a measure, harmful to others in thought or in deed. I think it's an opportunity to get rid of that part of the mind that wants to get even, that wants to do damage to somebody else because of what they're doing, and what they're saying, and when they're, and I guess I'm not as emotionally attached to the earth than some people, and that's, but I am. I mean, I want to live. I know the earth represents everything about us, where it came from, and what it's made out of, and all the systems, the birth systems. I should really put this up this time. I'm going to do that. I'm going to pull into this space here. Second, because Kathy left this in here. So I can put it up. Now, should I be reversing that screen? think Kathy does it different. Okay. So now if I do that, that's the way I'm supposed to do it. I can't believe I was... But the problem with that is it's got to be down low. I'm still trying to figure this out, so I'm not necessarily a quick learner. Let's see, so I think she wants it that way. I got it. Everybody's in the picture. And now I can even that's better. Okie dokie. Artichoke. So the word spiritual. Okay, that's a freeway right there. We want to go that way. All right. Maybe we can just zip around here and go out where we came in. Okay. So I'm not going to use my notes really because I'm not going to be trying to do a Bible study because I'm just going to provide the ideas and approximately where they are. First, I got to make sure I got 10 miles of this. what I'm behind right now is like a food truck. A lot of food trucks down here in Texas, and thriving businesses for folks. Good way to feed your family and have plenty of food on hand. It's as things become more and more of the robotocracy, I think I called it. Robotocracy? In one of my songs, I think. I don't know if that sounds like an interesting word. Maybe someone else already said it, but it doesn't matter to me. Getting rid of people. Why? Practicality, right? People cost money. Offering health care costs money. They're greedy. This is greed. It's actually pure greed. It shows what happens in a capitalistic society, to where you can do things without the assets to do them, because you got control of the money. You make the money. You print the money. You keep the books, and then falsify the books whenever you want to. When you're on the top, there's ways of doing things that don't lead a trail. I mean, they lead a trail, but if it's just going by the court, it's maybe they do leave trails all the time because they make mistakes, and then they try to twist those mistakes around to their benefit. So they're employing the procedure of turning a negative into a positive. For them, of course, it's whatever the people decide is their positive. So that's all. That becomes a whole bunch of confusion, and becomes the Maya that was talked about in the Hindu, Sanskrit. If I never studied the language, but I believe we got some of the meanings, because I believe that strain, the reason why it came about in the largely, it was coming about for a long time in New York, no question about it, and LA, I'm sure, no question about it either. Right, definitely in LA, like with the Hare Krishna movement, that, and the Maharishi in like 1968 in Greenwich Village, Maharishi Yogi. I remember, considering whether I wanted to get into his program. That was something transformation. By vibrating on peace and light. And oneness with the cosmic consciousness, God, the universal mind. So that came basically into the United States, however gradually, but then however more intensely in the probably the 60s, kind of in aligned not with necessarily, but as a part of what would be called the hippie movement, but maybe it's more the uppie movements. I'm not sure I really know. Well, the hippie was, I think, considered to be the uppies were more like the metropolitan hippies, right? So you didn't have the living in the woods part of it, you know. So the hillbilly part of it. I don't know if that's the right definition. I haven't actually looked it up. But silly as that sounds. I mean, never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I was just checking my directions there, making sure I'm still at 4.1 miles to my turn. I do want to try to program the mind to alert me to that in advance if I get off the track in the next few minutes. Maybe I can read the, you know what? Yeah, I'm in Houston. I'm in the outskirts of Houston. Headed towards Houston right now. But I'm going to veer west. Shortly. So the word spiritual is used. That it's the spiritual Sodom and Egypt that they're talking about. So what does that mean? It means it's the mentality of the plants. The mind of the plants. And we're plants. You know what? We're plants, so I've got to... Hello there. Are we plants? And, yeah, I know, that's kind of hard to take sometimes. Oh, we're just plants. So we're expendable, right? You can just trample us and nobody cares. Maybe I should try to have a comedy act. I don't know. Is any of this funny? But it's funny in a sad way, though, right? But at the same time, it's funny in a, I hope, an uplifting way. Primarily. That, the next level has humor. It's just not on the backs of somebody else. It's like not making fun of somebody else. I mean, reporting on somebody else, that's a different story. And reporting on them, making fun of somebody else, to me, that's going too far with trying to be morally correct in this regard. But that's what happens with the religious. They end up debating whether you can do this and do that. You know, what was forgivable and what wasn't. And then you could pay for your forgiveness. Right from the beginning, it was like corrupt to the hilt. So why would anybody think that it would change? Now, it doesn't mean all the members were corrupt to the hilt. It depended what they were doing in regards to their own personal relationship with Jesus and his Father, or Moses and his Father, or Enoch and his father, or Andor, all this, Adam and his father, Elijah and his father. Because I believe that, whoa, I can actually get in here to make my turn. I want to go west on 610. Right. Oh, right. That was just in the nick of time and there was nobody there. Better watch out now. Something will come up by surprise and I'll make a wrong turn. But otherwise, I've got... All right, this is one of the loops around Houston. There's like three loops, I think. I think Kathy told me that this was the fourth largest city in the United States. And it's spread out. I need to find the areas that can do the best for driving. Probably the hotels near the airport would be some of the best ones to be around. So, I want to continue to come back to the word spirituality or spiritual. And what it actually is defined as, if you go look at the Greek, which I encourage people to do, if they want to, really get the gist of what was said there a little bit better, to see the different options of the way that the language, because there was a Greek Hebrew kind of, I think it was called Koine, Koin, maybe. I that part I'm not sure about, but I know there was that combination. So that was like, you see combinations of languages all the time in New York and all over the United States. So it's the same kind of thing, probably in some regard, or a lot of different nationalities right in that right around that area. It looked like it was a breadbasket, biologically, or Southern Africa, or Central Africa. I'm not sure exactly. There's probably debates about this, based on this and based on that. Okay, I got a turn in 1.7 miles, and I don't want to miss it. I'm going to get back to that word, spiritual. Because I think it's safe to say all of us have degrees of spirituality in our mind's eye, I want to say. And what that means is varying degrees of having had experience to recognize how you can be thinking one thing. Wait a minute. I think I don't want to be here. just get off? I don't know what I just did just now. It didn't reroute me. I did miss a turn, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm trying to get on to 10 right here. Yeah, it's got me turning around, which is okay. It won't be a big mess time-wise. Let's see, I just have to stop here a second. So I see Sausage Holster. Glad to see you're a healthy man. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Rev C. P. Johnson says Sawyer. Hello. To you. And Nicholas Perman. Well, I don't think I can stay here. Southwestern says, hey. Okay, so 10 west. I'm on track in a half mile. So I'm gonna stop to the light so I can see. It said howdy from Nicholas. Hello, howdy to you. And the times here. I can't read it now. Further than that, the times here. Yeah, there's some time here happening. The times are here. Yes, if I understand what you're saying there, it was saying a lot. Yeah. And so then it comes down to, let's see, 10 west. That was weird. The sign just said 16, and holy smokes! It just told me the wrong thing. Twice. Couldn't believe that. Those signs were like crazy. I saw two signs contradict themselves on the direction that they were going. There was a west and an east on the same ramp. Unbelievable. Did I maybe just have a mind twitch? I think I saw that. Well, 10 west is this way. So I'll be back on track in a minute here. Hi, Finch. How can I earn money to buy me? Let's see. I can lend you some money. I've got some land over there on the coast of Colorado. They're pretty sure that California is going to fall into the ocean. So, it's a little bit of a gamble on this proposition. So if you find the money backers, then I'll provide the product, which is then I'll talk about the painting that I saw in 1975 after I joined the class that was in some library. And it was called Baja California, I think. No, that's actually a place, that peninsula. But no, it was something like, but it was showing that Colorado was the border, the Pacific Ocean went to Colorado. Because of the plate, it's a big plate. So who knows whether an earthquake could crack it open, Crack it open. So, yeah, I'm in no condition to give anybody financial advice. You'd be a fool to take my financial advice. My financial advice is get everything you can. Because they're taking it away from you anyway. Okay, half mile to Interstate 10. I happen to be behind a smelly tow truck. And thank goodness he's leaving. Boy, that one's a bad one. I just got gassed. So when you say that it's the spiritual Sodom and in Egypt where the Lord was crucified, murdered, where the Lord was, where Jesus was murdered, you're talking about Jerusalem. You're talking about Egypt. You're talking about the two straits, of the two streets is another way to actually translate it properly. The two pathways, the two times. I mean, you can even look at it as two pathways being. Well, I don't think so. I was going to say the class and then us. The which, maybe that can have its application in that regard. I mean, that's the challenge, of course, and you have to take a certain amount of things with a grain of salt, with prophecy interpretations and things, but look for consistency of ideas. That's what I found was the strongest backup for the opinions that the translator is including into the translation, which I tried to do a lot of that in my book. I provided the parts from the Strong's Concordance. I got permission from John Hurt to do. And it does, then it shows less of the religiosity and more of what's actually being illustrated or talked about. For an example of that is the Eye of the Needle story. That it's as hard for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven as for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Okay, and so the Eye of the Needle was thought of as this archway that the camels had to kneel down in order to crawl through. What kind of stupid government was there that they couldn't build a bigger archway so that they wouldn't have to do that? Well, is that a way to punish the poor? Keep them subservient? Make them go on their knees? And do damage to those poor camels? Or maybe they were okay with it. Maybe they could handle it. But if they had to do it every day, it might be tough. If that's the way it happened. I'm not saying that was exactly true or not, but it's one of the stories that was made up about it, or I don't know. No doubt, it's possible. So to argue over that to me would be kind of senseless on whether that was a true illustration of the reason why Jesus was saying that, because actually I think it was a needle from a sewing needle. And you can understand that because the rich person, and Jesus explained it, it is the next level perspective, I think. Whoops. I gotta get over a lane. That in order to rise to giving one's all to the next level as asking for service, Which, you could say that. Like, I could say that, I felt that way. But how do I know what that means? It could mean something that I don't want it to mean. And I'm not talking about the S word. Not at all, because the position of the next level of Doe and crew and T was that we need these vehicles to learn lessons through. So take advantage of every moment that you have to have the healthiest vehicle you can have for the longest period of time, because the lessons are being accelerated now. And the task, that they left behind was to be ready to stand for them. That might become more difficult, but we can handle it. Because we might see that there's two kinds of Hitler operating. Two kinds of leadership operating that were probably the same space alien souls that were behind Hitler. And that's where you got your first official sightings of the Foo Fighters. The mysterious vehicles that aviators, some of them experienced, or said they experienced. Now, my uncle didn't experience it, and he flew in a B-52 bomber over Germany, and he was on the navigation team of calculating when to drop the bombs. He was a good man. I mean, you didn't think of him as, I'm not saying anything bad about him, I love him. And, but I mean, that was the way that was the development of the birthing of more and more people not identifying with humans killing humans, not justifying that, even though that doesn't mean that self-defense, that might not happen. But of course that's been blown way out of proportion. But then in a sense, it's not. Because there are adversaries to countries. And, nukes are no joke. Because they've got, they've got like, I guess scaled down nukes. Somehow they've been able to maybe use different amounts of certain elements to have less radioactive fallout. I don't know why. So to me, that would be one of the big deterrents to using it for the elites, because of how it would poison the water supply that they may depend on. That guy's got those lit up wands bouncing around on his back of his truck, and they're blue and I'm still 56 minutes away. But I want to get back to the spiritual, because when you look it up, it means that it's a way of illustrating. It's an illustration. It's a, what was the word? Pneuma. No, it's a mental way of looking at things. It's talking about a representative area that would have the same characteristics as the area where the history was. The last time the Older Member came in a human vehicle, took over a human vehicle to use. Which, by the way, that mind that's broad is left here. And I don't know how long it takes for it to diminish, but it does. The potency of it, or so that the old promised land, Doe felt like didn't have anything. He didn't feel his Older Member there, because he went there with 3 students. I think it was Live Odie, Jan Odie, and Steel Odie, maybe? So he didn't feel it there. And Jesus talked about how Jerusalem, the kingdom of God, would be taken from Jerusalem. In other words, they weren't going back to that area. He said that directly. Oh, Jerusalem, oh, Jerusalem. Every time you send, he was referring to probably reading a scripture, but it was a meaningful scripture to him. And it was up to date, the way that he used it, to indicate that, you're killing everybody that the next level sends to you, because of how primitive they were glued to their, well, I shouldn't say primitive. We're talking about the vehicles that I don't know why. I don't know if they were minds that lost sight of the Older Member in a previous civilization. To where they become like the space aliens, all about themselves, where the next level is all about your Older Member. And of course everybody around you is all part of that same mindset. And so everybody's working together to try to do the best job they can, because they know that when they look to their Older Members' guidance, they always get a better perspective. But the Older Members don't give them that guidance, except as overall tasks, and whatever briefing is part of it, and whatever preparation there is for it. But they don't answer all the questions that they're going to have at all when they actually have experience with the task. It's one thing to be prepared for a task by mind alone, and not by experience, especially when you're working with the human kingdom that's got so many members to have ways of monitoring. Talking about vehicles, because they have the radio band, I think, to tune into anybody. That's where I agree with Kathy, that everything's equal in a lot of ways like that. And the bugs are part of that, but I think it's just, I don't tune into the bugs doing much to us with our minds, or they can be annoying, and you can have the lesson of being annoyed and not be annoyed, and that might actually put out a vibration that the bugs won't bother you because of. So like even Kathy having a pet spider, that wanders into the RV. What's going on here? I'm losing the lane again. That's why the right lane is not good to travel in. Okay, but I'm still on track. So, there's the stacks. I kind of take them for granted, but they are pretty good. They have to be good. I think they sometimes don't have them overlapping the support as much as I would hope. I don't know if they tie them together so well that an earthquake wouldn't have them fall off the edge of the mount. I don't know. They may have accounted for that. I know they got standards in California when they had the collapse of some of the freeway mount, the stacks that they had there. But okay, so back to the prophecy. So in other words, by saying it's comparing where the two witnesses, where their bodies are going to be, and that's talking about the Western United States, I believe. I don't just believe that, that's what I have seen the evidence for, is the new land that Jesus was talking about coming to, which is the North America primarily, but that doesn't mean that, I mean, you can say South America too. Yeah, I know this is a problem for some people to talk about it that way, as if the next level doesn't go to a specific place on the planet. You know, like if they didn't come to my country, that means they couldn't be the true gods. Well, when do you have any example that somebody that religions talked about as gods came to every place? You know, it's like, but you know, we can get all possessive about our nationalities. And you can say, well, it's easy for you to say that, Sawyer, because you were here in the United States, so you just, you know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be actually giving any voice to that, so I won't even finish the sentence, because I shouldn't spend time on that, because there's so many things like that, that, you know, those thoughts can be heard. And that's why Tiendo were masters of knowing what thoughts were not from their minds. Because they were only tuning into a certain range. And the space aliens had access to that. So they knew they could be given off track by that. And off track is just an opportunity to get back on track. And when we get off, our minds get off in one way or another, you know, into, I don't know what other people experience necessarily, but let's say downers and hatred of self even. And we come out of it, and we want to come out of it, and we ask the next level for help to come out of it. We can get the lesson from it, you know, and it's not a cause for I don't know. It's like there's an interesting relationship that, you know, Tiendo, they knew that you could just get rid of something. And actually, I experienced that today. I can do it with things that aren't emotionally affecting me. In other words, I can stop the thoughts that don't emotionally affect me. Like, let's say I have a thought, you know, that judges somebody by their appearance. You know, that might have in some way, I don't want to be specific really right now. I mean, I haven't been quiet about it, but I come from an area in New York City, right at the outskirts of New York City, but essentially New York City because, yeah, I was born in New York City, and there's a certain amount of bigotry, I think, that is there. And a certain amount of, you know, which is, of course, everybody knows it. And not only one kind of bigotry, but multiple bigotries. Because it might be safe to say that every nationality has its bigotry within its own ranks. But that can be seen as a racial or a skin pigmented, or head, and whatever it is. It's variations of vehicles that the minds all can get growth from whatever vehicle. I think it's safe to say. But when we have a thought that judges somebody by their appearance or their intellect, or like saying, "Oh, that person's stupid," or "That person's an idiot," or "That person's," they may be an idiot about one thing, or 10 things, or 100 things, or but they might have some things right too. 10, 100, 1,000. Right relative to what? Measure, right? Well, I like to measure from T&O, and that's like what Martin Luther King said. Judge a man by his character. Judge a human by their character. Doesn't mean that he was demonstrating that very well. Maybe in his maybe he was. I know I've heard stories about things that he after all he was in a human vehicle. I don't know what. I suspect there was he had next level support, I believe. I suspect that he was like one of the class members preparing the way for their older members to come public. And that was like their task to learn from, by having that interface with a human that was given a deposit that helped the soul take it over better, and gave it the courage to act. We can ask the next level for the courage to be willing to stand for them and get their information out and maintain a stand for as long as we are living in these vehicles, and accept that there's going to be some consequences in terms of, we don't know exactly what, but don't worry about it. But also look for the ways that can be minimized and changed into a positive, and even avoided entirely by being keen to your environment, and that would be like an online environment as well. Like you really, I don't think, want to uh, have people know exactly where you are residing, except the people that you trust, of course. I mean, but then there's times when, that's worth doing, having contact with people. I mean, I know that I don't fear that. And I know that there's influences that could want to do me harm physically. But I also know that unless I do something stupid, I believe, and I ask for help with things, but some next level crew members probably have their eye on those that are trying to work for them, whoever they are, in whatever capacity. And I'm not the judge of them. That could be people that never heard of Tiendo, of course. But we're separating from the world in their own ways. Because that's what it's, the separating part isn't not appreciating it, I don't think. Because there's not going to be less beauty in the next level. I don't think. No. But there'll be different things that we witness that are beautiful. That might be the music of the spheres. That might be one of them. Tiendo did use that as an example. And and so the next level is working with humans all the time, even like hands-on, even in like having, they can be aware of the spirit world. I don't know what their mechanisms are for helping draw certain spirits or one certain spirit to an individual to give that individual some of what they want, that the next level would think about as the lessons that they'll get from that experience. And like Kathy heard the voice in her head say, what are you going to do with it? If you get success, what are you going to do with it? And so there's an open end. That sounded to me like a next level thought. Because I've actually heard Doe say that. Because sometimes, once in a while he would have us play the lottery or something. Or I'm talking about a rare occasion. And I witnessed that happening maybe 1, 2, 3 times over 19 years. Like one time they sent us to Las Vegas because we were living near Las Vegas in a warehouse in the suburbs. for a brief time. We drove our trailers into it because we were mobile at the time, coming from Arizona and New Mexico. But I'm still on track for 28 miles. So anyway, I just lost where I was going with that. This isn't tight enough here. I gotta put something around that to make that a little tighter. Or maybe I just push it down more. Oh yeah. It gets smaller, right? That does work. Alright. See if I can read anything in the chat. So the idea of spiritual, though, definition of Sodom, where Sodom is representing well, what to the next level is like if there truly were people that their only interest was basically sexual, and even violently or even against the will of another being, and that was the way that they would treat people. That's pretty evil to me. That's not, and if what goes with that is total self-centeredness, and probably not even caring if you killed somebody who wasn't as strong as you and was your competitor or something. I don't know. I mean, it could. It's not made into. It's been made into something that I don't can be related, but the next level aren't prudes about what humans do, but they do have standards. And if anything, I think I could be wrong, but I think that what it says in Leviticus about a man not laying with another man the way that they lay with a woman. I think that was talking about anal sex. I think that's, dangerous to the health as well. And maybe that's why. So I don't know, maybe this country is preoccupied with it. To be honest with you. And, but that's not but that would just be one characteristic of a populace. It doesn't mean if somebody's having that they're evil. I'm not saying that. It's just human behavior. But I think they're going to get their own ramifications from it, depending on how they do it and when. So maybe it can be done completely painless and all that. I don't know, or without rupturing the insides of the body. But anyway, it's not for me to say. I'm just talking about what I think or some of these words represent. You know what? I should probably fill up with gas. No. It was a lot cheaper at that QT 239. It was at 208 is what I paid for gas earlier today when I started to work. So I'm going to get off that Sodom talk and move on to the part that was compared to Egypt, being the two straits, and how humans found, archaeologists that were digging in the Grand Canyon at some point found, like, built into the cliffs, they found like finished rooms, that were hewn flat into the rock. And that they had the hieroglyphic paintings there that resembled the same kind of hieroglyphic paintings that they saw had happened in Egypt. And that they had mummies there, and statues, different kinds of statues that resembled that. And Carloti had talked about how the Mississippi River was compared to the Nile, and it was Cairo, Illinois, and another city in that area that was named after Egypt, and how that represents the two straits of the two pathways, or the two harvesting of souls. I mean, I know that's a stupid thing to say, really, because that's the old English religious kind of terminology, and it's not correct. It's not a harvest to where you're doing damage to anything that has any value. It is the receiving of those that desired to give their all to the older members that they recognized as being from the highest source that they could imagine existing, from out in the heavens that created the planet and the life forms on it. See, they didn't mince words with that, but they didn't say all those things. If you picture them, like talking the way I'm talking, you're not going to get the right picture at all. Because I'm summarizing little things that were said and done over 19 years of my experience that are evident in the audio tapes that were for the last 1982 to 1997. So 15 years of audio tapes that we have. I remember one time forgot where we were, but T was still in her vehicle. And in this location, this house, we called a craft because it was like a simulated spacecraft that didn't show any signs of being a spacecraft on the inside, so that it would be, so workers wouldn't come in there if they had to fix the pipes or something and see, anything that wouldn't be normal to see. And that was the way that T&DO had us maintain our security against being found out, considering that they were known as the UFO cult in 1975. But that was when we moved into houses. But they were also doing things when we were living outdoors to try to keep people from yeah, this is like, I don't like this. Narrow as can be. There's 2 lanes here. Remember when I was on a road like this with the motorhome and it was raining? And it wasn't cold enough to freeze, but it was like in Alabama. And it was scary. So, the reason I'm talking about this prophecy that talks about where they're leaving their human containers behind, even though they didn't have to do that, and the prophecies would still come true because of the resurrection part. But it was showing that their vehicles would have to go through a transformation to leave that soon. That's what T&DO are teaching right away. He's saying that you don't have to die to go to the next level. You can become of one mind enough with them that our vehicle can heal itself from things that would end their lives. Now, just to be honest about that, if let's say the vehicle was blown up, would it be able to heal itself from that? I don't think so. I don't know. If it is able to do that, then I imagine it would take some time. More than 3 days. But I don't think so. I don't think that's a realistic way of thinking. But it'd be a lot easier to use another vehicle. And the next level does pick backups for the souls to take. So if one doesn't work out, then that soul goes on to another one. long, narrow part of this interstate is no fun. So I believe the evidence suggests that California and Nevada and might have some equivalencies with the names of those locations talked about in that scripture. So I think, like Tiendo felt like Western United States was where they felt like they had better communication with their older member, T's older member, in the Western United States, because they would take trips. They took trip to New York, I don't know how many times, and Florida, and different time periods, and they became sensitive to where the differences in their sense of closeness with their older member. They did have a sense of closeness with their older member, especially when they went to the high altitudes. But there was also like a detriment to doing that, because of the lower oxygen content. That can stimulate dizziness. Jeez, an oversized load on this thing. Holy smokes. And he doesn't even have I would have thought those oversized loads needed to have like a car in front of it or behind it or something. He may be breaking the rules. It wasn't terribly oversized. Mongolian beachfront property. Yeah, we can get some of that. Well, that person just zipped by me and I didn't even know they were there. Holy schmockles. Hello, old school Dave. This isn't. But see, so another way of thinking of the two straits is, well, both of them went across the United States. So it wasn't just the West. But most of the members, most of the souls that found vehicles wherever they were, migrated to the Western United States or were visiting the Western United States when Tiendo were going public. But there were exceptions to that. And To me, it was very interesting that the New Jerusalem was described as being approximately 1,500 miles square. And there have been some sightings by the SOHO satellite or cameras of like a square object in the sun's corona. Not a lot, a couple times I saw it. Now somebody might have been playing games. Whoa, what's going on? Everybody's stopping. Holy smokes. Oh, I see there's, okay. I don't know if they're forcing us all off. It shows it's temporary on the map, so it gives me a chance to look at the, so I guess I'm delayed. So let's see, hello okay, let's see, Jari Aguilar Mandujano. Yes, hello to you as well, says hello. And Cook was here, said hello to everybody. And how can I earn money to buy me, oh yeah, that was from Network, okay. And Finch said hello to everybody, and I guess I got to everybody in the chat. Sausage Holster. So I'm just going to keep on chipping away at all these connections with different things in prophecy, because I want to get to the Mark Twain thing eventually too, so I guess I better do that a little bit at least, because he was the things that came out of Samuel Clemens' mouth and became known as the Mark Twain through the books that he wrote, and Huckleberry Finn, and was sometimes extraordinary, and for that time especially, like how he wouldn't have anything to do with the religions, but he believed there was a creator. How he wrote that, that's one thing. Because, you know, he had outgrown being one of the religious, letting that define themselves. We're defined by what we think, say, and do. That's our definition, whether it's to ourselves or available for others to see. And it's more serious when we're influencing others. It's a much more serious offense to the next level for people to, you know, but I'm not saying that I'm judging that people that are in those positions, there's something evil about them. Again, that's the religious way of thinking about it. But we can understand that the behavior even though can be people that are in government. It could be the best they can do under the circumstances. So that's a real way of thinking. And so the next level can be helping them in different ways. If they're asking. If they're asking, like, to do what's right, even if they don't believe in there being anybody to ask that of, well, then I don't know what the next level does with that. Or the next level might still give them ideas. Even if they're not, because that might actually be more honest than when the religious when some of the religious ask. Because some of the religious are also could be doing the best that they can do. It can be a growth process. Being in politics is part, like, those are all like characteristics that people put their beliefs in, and it could be art, it could be whatever it is that we put our mind on, and it could be multiple things, of course. And all those things then become part of our belief system, every facet of it. What we think, say, and do. If we become a bitter person, then we believe in bitterness, or we wouldn't be doing it, or we'd be trying to work against it, of letting that out of our mouths by learning to have restraint, so that we're not affecting somebody else with what the next level would call a pufufis kind of thing. That was like what the word that Tiendo came up with to replace losing gas or farting. Pufufis. Because they were trying to help us change our human programming. To accept their program. Because even though we want to accept it, doesn't mean that we are going to accept it, and to what degree we're going to accept it, and whether we're going to keep on trying to accept it, or we're going to say, oh no, I can't accept that, so I'm going to throw it away, go another direction. If we do that, then it's, that's always a prerogative, of course. And it might not be the last time that comes to the mind. Because Tiendo and crew have ways of seeing to it that the things that they want and hope will be brought to the public's attention for those that look for it, or even don't, but are watching movies and things to where things can be put into, which is also happening, has been happening for a long time, like with the Matrix movies and others. So that humans are more and more prepared to actually see the next level for what it is, instead of through the lens of a spiritual, which is actually, the word used there, it even has it's pseudo in its definition. folks. Sorry, I do want to get to see if there's anything else in the chat happening. And then, of course, Revelation 12 with the woman and the man, and their students are in that too. And the lower forces that talked about, and there's a lot of information in those that it all has all kinds of examples of Tiando's teachings in it without referring to them. Like the only one that Doe brought up, the library, because nobody had their personal Bible or anything else personal really, except if they had an extraordinary need for a certain item, then they would have that. But it would be still part of the craft. But it might just go with them wherever they go if they happen to change crafts. I'll give you an example of what things became personal. Because it didn't matter to me. I didn't have any problem, So I'll be 10 minutes. I hope Kathy's sleeping. But, so the New Jerusalem being like 1,500 miles square just so happens to look like the Western United States, from the Mississippi River to the Pacific coast. And it can even be thought of as being the same sides, but it can be a square that's tilted so that it even extends over more landmass, even going up towards like Edmonton, where Andody and Chakotay originally came from. I mean, I'm just observing these things. So technically that might mean that there's a spacecraft that was actually put in place that is invisible to humans to see. That was even could even be on top of a specific area of the planet's surface. And there could be members of the next level with their next level grown vehicles that a human can't see unless they've grown to see it, which no humans in the classroom had grown to that, besides T potentially, but that T didn't really talk about except maybe one time or two times that she endo saw things. But that T knew there were many things that we couldn't see because we hadn't trained our eyes and our mind to interpret it. It's like if something's happening that you have no interpretation of, you don't even see it. It could be reflecting light, but not in a way that you can make sense out of it. Said that he and his father were coming back. John 23 chapter, or is it John? He talks about quite a few different ways that you'd be actually able to, the students, the souls, would be actually able to ask the Father their own questions directly instead of Jesus having to ask on their behalf. That's pretty clear that you've got another being there. And also having the same residence. They would make their residence with you. In other words, they would be living in vehicles. And that he would be the Son of Man. That's who was coming back, he said. When he was asked, who is. And what he said was, he asked the disciples one time, his students one time, he said, who is it that they say the Son of Man is? Referring to himself as Son of Man, which just happened to be what Adam considered himself, and Enoch considered himself, and Ezekiel, I think, considered himself. And that doesn't have to mean that all those individuals were him, his task. Because anybody that's from the next level, that has a next level vehicle in the next level, even if they didn't finish their lesson program in order to become more an adult member of the next level and are still at a student capacity, they would be in the human kingdom as a Son of Man. Son of human is what that means. That's another pointer to coming with a physical body. Also, the two witnesses were supposed to prophesy. Well, prophesy, actually, if you look it up, is rooted in speech that is public. Speech that you make public, not just something you say to yourself. And Mark Twain also said in the movie that Samuel Clemens and Albert Einstein worked on. No, not Einstein. And Edison worked on. They said there was a fare, a cost to riding the tail of the comet to heaven. And that was $5.75. And so is it a mystery of why they had $5.75 on them? And is it also a mystery of, what number of the members had $5.75 on them? And how it was true that at one point we were given like 75 cents of change to have in our pockets when we did out-of-craft tasks in case we needed to make a phone call, because the payphones were all like a nickel or a dime, or even a long-distance call was like a quarter in the 1980s in the United States. So, and so we would sign out that money before we left, and then that was up till $5 bill. We got a $5 bill plus, and then that was also made into $5 $1 bills, so that if we needed it for a toll or something, or if we needed to get a little bite to eat, because our task that we had took us out of the craft during the time that we were scheduled to consume fuel. That's how we thought about food, as fuel, not as a sensuous experience. But it was well prepared, and it was made to be tasty and healthy relative to the kind of health we needed to have, because all health isn't related to one strict diet that somebody treats like a religion. It should be something that somebody is, if they want to be conscious of their health as much as possible, would be open to making changes, to restrict some things and to include some things. But there's a whole bunch of mindfulness also. I would say that Tian Do's classroom was the epitome of mindfulness. Like if you made too much noise going up the stairs, that would be brought to your attention at some point, because it was brought to my attention. And I became quieter at it. Try and making no noise at all. Let's see, what's the number? Well, it's not February yet. Okay, folks, I think I'm done. I don't see anything new happening in here. Baby Yoda. So see you another time. Adios, amigos.